Good evening everyone, and thank you once again for tuning in onto BrandPlus TV today. Thank you also for those of you tuning in from Facebook, much appreciated. On this particular episode, I'm going to be doing a very simple dish. I'm going to be doing some liver stew, and I'm also going to show you how to do some mukimo. Very two local dishes, by the way, and for some of you who already know how to do it, you may actually be able to pick something new. Now we're going to start off by introducing the ingredients before us, and I'll take you right to the very front where you can see some garlic cloves. Right next to that I've got some cumin and some mixed herbs. We're also going to be using some tomato paste, about a tablespoon, about 2 stock cubes, and some minced ginger. You're also going to require some pureed cooked pumpkin leaves, some sweet corn. You're also going to require some liver, of course, some red onion, a bit of some coriander, and 2 medium-sized potatoes, and last but not least, some salt to season. Now we're going to take a break now, giving you a chance to grab your pens and papers if you're taking notes, and when we come back, we're going to get cooking. See you in a little while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who just joined in, we're just about to start this very simple dish. Remember, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing a local dish today. We're going to do a very simple mukimo, and I'm also going to show you a nice beautiful trick around some liver. Now to start us off, I'm going to begin by boiling my potatoes. So proceed by pouring out the water and begin by chopping that up into about 1-inch cubes. Once that is done, we're going to proceed to add that to a pot that's already on the boil. We're going to also be adding to the pot some corn. This particular corn I'm using came from the cob. It's actually not cooked, so we're going to actually allow this to cook together with our potatoes. And I'm just going to pour those into this pot on the side. And I'm also going to incorporate about half of that corn. Now we're going to allow that to continue cooking covered and take the lid off when it's just about ready to come out. And while that continues, I'll bring your attention back to the hot pan right next to me, where we're going to start off very simply by adding to it about 4 garlic cloves. Just going to quickly roughly chop that. Proceed to even out the size by chopping a little further. Always, of course, pushing everything towards the center of your board. You can also mince your ginger. You can actually also throw it in a pestle and mortar if you have the time to. Right, so once that's done, proceed to add that to your pan. To that, you're going to also add a very small dash of oil. And you're going to proceed to allow your garlic to color very, very briefly and sweat out, bringing a beautiful aroma to your dish. To that, we're going to incorporate some minced ginger, 1 teaspoon as well. Mix that together in the pan, and be sure to always return your mixture to the center of the pan where it's hottest. And next up, we'll proceed to add some liver. So I'm just going to cut that into some nice chunky pieces. Now, liver is a particularly very, very good source of iron. It's also quite low on calories, and it's actually a very, very good option for some of you who are trying to really battle with your weight. It actually also does come quite at a very, very affordable price. So I do recommend, if you do have the chance to try some liver, do not ever miss out on the chance to have some. So proceed. Cut the rest of the liver. Now we're chopping this into about 1-inch cubes, nice and big chunky sizes. We're going to proceed to add those to our hot pan. As for the last and final piece, and once done, proceed to just rinse your board really quickly under some running water. And be sure to turn your board around, of course, allowing you to work very, very cleanly. A quick wipe of your board, and now you can proceed. So turn your temperature to medium and proceed to mix your garlic, your ginger, and your liver, continuously mixing. And you can turn your heat to a little higher than that. Right, so our water has also come to the boil. At this point, I'll remove my lid and allow for it to continue cooking uncovered. And we're going to proceed to seal our meat. Of course, always constantly mixing to make sure for a more even consistency of color and as well of cooking temperature. Just going to take that away. Now for this particular dish, for some of you who may actually have your descendants in the central province, Mukimo is actually a very, very common dish on that particular end, and even a staple for some. I will also remind you that it is also a very, very good alternative to having a starch, for instance rice or any particular other starches. It actually is very common within the Kenyan community, but it has actually had its different variations all around the world. You actually have some of the African communities also incorporating banana, cassava, and sweet potato and yam. So there is quite a bit of reference out there. So do a bit of homework. You will actually be able to find some beautiful recipes. Now we're just going to toss that. Nice, beautiful aroma coming through. Now to that, I will proceed to add some of my cumin powder, and I'll also add about half a teaspoon of some tomato paste. Going to proceed to toss that in the pan. Of course, also incorporating just a little bit of water. Water will always help in cooling your pan a little bit and also help to reconstitute those flavors. And also it will actually help you to really dissolve that tomato paste. Proceed to break that chunk of tomato paste. Of course, adding a little bit of water if it's not diluted already. Very important to always make sure that you actually cook down your tomato paste. Remember, it actually is a catalyst for indigestion, so be very, very wary of using it. I try to particularly use at maximum 1 heaped teaspoon, so I do recommend to not go anywhere beyond that unless you're cooking something that's actually bigger in volume. Let's proceed to give that a nice quick mix. Now we're going to allow that to continue simmering at high heat, of course constantly mixing together, making sure to actually get those nice beautiful chunks to cook down together and also dissolve that tomato paste. But while that continues, I'm going to incorporate 1 stock cube, so that you'll actually just hold right over your pot and proceed to just break the chunks with your fingertips. This should actually help for it to dissolve a little faster. Be sure to rinse your hands once done. And now give that a mix once more. And now we're going to add a few other ingredients to that. So I'll start by adding a bit of some red onion. And this you want to chop very, very finely. So be sure to use a very sharp knife for this. And proceed to chop the rest, making sure to discard the root. Once done, proceed to add that to your pot with the liver. And now you can proceed to toss everything together in your pan. Of course, making sure to completely coat everything together. And now you can proceed to chop up some coriander. So I'm going to use a very small handful for this addition. Chop that very, very finely. Right, once done, proceed to add your coriander. And proceed to toss together once more, making sure to get a nice consistent mixture. And now you can proceed to turn your temperature very, very low and allow for your meat to continue to cook for anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes. That should actually allow for it to tenderize very, very gently. And just to reconstitute the flavors once more, proceed to add, or drizzle rather, a little bit of water around the sides of your pan. Remember, there's quite a bit of meat residue that's actually stuck to the sides there, so you may actually want to use your wooden spoon to actually just scrape the sides of your pan at this stage, making sure to go around at least twice, and proceed to mix everything through once more. And now you can allow to simmer until finished, so that should take us about another 4 to 5 minutes. But while this continues, I'll bring your attention to the side here. And using a sharp knife or even a fork, you can proceed to check for the doneness of your potatoes. So just give them a prick. If they actually slide off the tip of your knife very, very quickly, that means they're now ready to come out. So we're going to turn down the heat completely. And holding a strainer right over the sink, I'm going to quickly just pour out the water. And I'll proceed to bring this back to the stove top here. I'm going to grab something very handy as well. For those of you who may not know what this is, it's actually a potato masher. If you don't have one of this, please don't panic. You can actually be able to mash with a wooden spoon, but if you have the help of something this handy, it will actually come in hand as well. So very, very simply, remember this was already done a little earlier in the show, but it's actually a bit cold. We're going to be adding that to the mukimo, but to add this to the mukimo for color. But before you do so, very handy that you actually put a bit of heat in the pan, and you can actually scoop about half of your bowl. So I'm using about half a cup of pumpkin leaves. And these are particularly very, very rare. You may actually be able to find them at your regular retail stores. But if you don't find them, you can actually also substitute that for some baby spinach or some regular spinach. It will also aid in giving you some beautiful green color. So up next, proceed to begin to mash your contents. Of course, paying attention to make sure that your potatoes are fully cooked by this stage. And after a small quick reheating, turn that off and proceed to mash everything together. And you should actually be able to have just a bit of liquid in your pot at this stage, and that will actually aid you very much in getting everything to mix very, very easily. And once you've broken your chunks down, discard your masher and proceed to use a wooden spoon. And for this, you're actually just going to use to really break down the consistency by constantly mixing this. And we're going to briefly just put that back on the heat. Remember, particularly for this dish, it does actually have to really, really just mellow down into something very similar to a pudding, just to give that a mix. So your liver is completely done. We're going to turn that off completely. Now for the mukimo, as I said, you are actually looking for consistency very similar to mashed potatoes. So very, very important to make sure that you cook away as much liquid as you possibly can at this stage to aid you in really getting a good mashing of your potatoes. And now we're going to basically turn off the heat, allow that to continue cooling, and we're just going to proceed to mash until we get the consistency we're looking for. Now we're going to take a break at this stage, allowing you to actually refresh. And when we do come back, we're going to go to the last and final stage of plating this dish. And I'm also going to share with you some very simple tips that you can actually be able to throw into this simple dish to turn it into a wow factor for your family at home, or the visitors or guests that may actually enjoy this particular dish. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. now back from the short break. For those of you who are with us before, we're now going to start by plating this beautiful dish, and I'll give you a few hints. But for those of you who are just catching up, we've been working on some liver. We've also been working on some mukimo, which is a very local Kenyan dish, particularly from the central province. And now we are going to come to the last and final part of this dish, which is the plating. And for that, I'm going to be using this beautiful device. This is actually a plating mold or a dairing mold. You can be able to find this in most catering or retail catering shops right within the CBD of Nairobi. And these are very, very handy, particularly for plating. So I'm just going to grab a spoon here. And I'm going to proceed to begin by plating my beautiful mukimo dish. I'm just going to scoop that into the mold, making sure to press down very, very, very firmly. Now proceed to add the rest. Now this particularly helps really, really well with portioning, so you'll actually be able to see it when you actually try it on your own. It will also save you time when really trying to give an appearance with your dish. And once you get to the very top, you can stop at that point and proceed to lift the mold. And as you can see, it does a very, very good job. And now next up to serve is the liver. So just quickly refresh that by giving it a mix and proceed to plate it right on the side. Probably just one more scoop. And just to finish that off, always very, very also acceptable to actually give your food a bit of a touch of glamour when you're done plating. So I'm going to be using a very, very simple technique. I'm just going to use this small branch of coriander, and I'm going to place that right over the top like that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my very simple version of liver stew with homemade mukimo. Thank you once again for tuning in. For those of you watching online, we always appreciate your feedback. So do scroll down to that little box on the comment section and do actually leave us some good comments there or any questions you may have. My name is Chef Andy once more, and from the studios, thank you once again for tuning in today. You have been tuned into BrandPlus TV. You've been watching Dinner Guide, and until the next episode, have a lovely evening and God bless.